So, hello and welcome to Emotional Eating. My name is Janet, and I'm going to be presenting to you a class on emotional eating and how to manage your emotions to stay on track. And so, my background is in nutrition. I have a master's in nutrition, and I've been teaching nutrition and exercise for over 25 years. And I also have, in the last 5 years, become the manager for 3 obesity clinics for Kaiser Permanente. And so I love what I do and I love presenting. I will say in advance, I am wonderful in front of people and I'm going to do my best to do this recording. So, but I'm human. So stay with me and hopefully you'll enjoy this seminar. So our agenda today is we're going to look at what is emotional eating, how to identify certain emotions, hear from some others and see if they're relatable to you, talk about tools to change behavior, patterns of discovery, and some resources. And at the end of this, we'll have you fill out a questionnaire, which is on another link on your email, and that is required to finish the course. Okay. So what is emotional eating? Emotional eating is the tendency to change one's eating behavior in response to negative or personal emotions. So if you think about some stressful or negative or even positive, like over the holidays, negative, maybe, something stressful that's been happening in your life that drives you to do um, something, it's a behavior. And so sometimes eating is one of those behaviors. But emotions don't cause you to overeat. It's not one that begets the other. It's about stopping and recognizing the emotion. So our behavioral response or of overeating to the emotions is what's leading to the weight gain. So if you follow the emotion and then you have a behavior and the behavior is eating, that behavior is going to have you put weight on because you're adding more calories that maybe are not needed. So that's what emotional eating is. Is it genetic or environmental? So overeating or undereating in response to emotions emerges in preschool years. So oftentimes it's things that happened early on that kind of set your brain in motion in that regard. So I want you to think about that and think about if there's certain things like a grandma that said, always finish your plate. It's not grandma's fault. That's how they were raised. Um, or something that happened at school, something that was in response to around food for some reason. So be thinking about that as I'm talking about emotional eating. There was a study with some twins and their emotional eating, and they learned that it was a learned behavior from 91% of these twins, not inherited. So that just means that there is a way to break that behavior. It just takes time to look at it. And if it is a learned behavior, how do we change it? So important things to note. If you have negative emotions, those who overeat in response to negative emotions tend to overeat in a response to a variety of other cues. So if you see or smell food or somebody talks about it. Another big one is on commercials. I always joke with my kids when we're watching a game or something and the commercial comes on and they talk about something. And then a few minutes later, I'll say, does anybody feel like going and getting Burger King? Because it's a trigger and they know that. So how would you describe yourself? Would you describe yourself as somebody who can be triggered by that? Um, can you think of a time that you were stressed and you did overeat and then kind of look back and thought, was I really hungry? So do you change the way you eat in response to negative emotions? Does your eating behavior change every time you have a negative emotion? So these are things that you might want to start breaking down and looking at if you haven't already. So which emotions can be linked to changing one's eating behavior? Negative emotions like anxiety, stress, boredom, depression, frustration, loneliness. Positive emotions like happiness, excitement, joy, surprise, cheerful, confidence, euphoria. It's complicated because some people eat more in response to emotions, some people eat less, and it depends on the situation. I did interview a couple friends that you're going to hear from, and not the one I chose, but she had said that she definitely does not eat during stressful times. And she wishes she could eat. So that is something too, with some people will get stressed and they just don't eat. And then after the stressful time, they eat. So emotions are internal triggers that take you off track. So your thoughts do not have to drive behavior. We can have thoughts without acting on them. And I want to share one of my own examples that I found to be interesting and that I noticed when I was teaching this class a few years ago. When I was growing up, my mom would have her spot at the front of the table. My dad wasn't around, and she smoked cigarettes back in the 70s. And she would, when she was talking to somebody or even on the phone, and I'm sitting there watching her, she would have her cigarette like this, 2 fingers, and she'd put her elbow down on the table and she'd hold her cigarette and smoke, So luckily she stopped smoking. But I noticed that when I'm thinking, I do this. And I didn't realize that until I was teaching a class about behavior and recognized my own behavior, which kind of made me, think fondly of my mom and glad that she quit cigarettes. But noticing that, I've been doing that since I was a kid, and I watched her behavior and mimic it. So think about that. Are there things that you do that mimic something that somebody outside of you, like your family or somebody else did, and you mimic them? And sometimes that's something you want to look at and change that behavior. So it might be eating, it might be, certain action that you take that your family did, or your mother or father or somebody, and you're copying that behavior. Sometimes it's something you want to change. So this is a friend of mine, and I wanted you to hear from her. You're just going to hear her voice, but I wanted you to hear what she had to say about her emotional eating.
So have you ever been really stressed out and emotionally ate?
Yes, I emotionally eat when I'm on the phone. So I have noticed in the last couple years, when I get on a phone call, I start going through the cabinets and looking for food. And then next thing I know, I look down and I'm eating. And it's so, for one, it's so rude when you're eating and talking to people. And for two, I'm not even paying attention to what I'm doing. So sometimes I probably just eat and not even know. I walk away, hang up, and not even realize that I ate something. So that is my emotionally eating when I'm on the phone.
So what's some steps do you think you can take to overcome some of those things?
So one of the things I was thinking about is when I'm on the phone, just go outside or go in the garage or go into another room, get out of the kitchen, and just step away from where all the food is and my problem. So that is my emotional eating.
So think about if that's something that you do. Do you get on the phone at home and just start eating? If it's a stressful phone call, maybe it's a relative that you haven't talked to in a long time and it's a, tough situation. Does it drive you to eat? And I noticed this with myself, and I started picking up the phone and walking out the door. So now my dog even knows that it's time. If somebody calls, she gets excited because she knows she's going to go for a walk. So it's common. So that's one scenario that I wanted you to think about. This is another friend on here, and she actually went through a program and lost over 100 pounds, has kept it off for over 5 years, and we've become friends. And she's blind, and she has some limitations that she has to watch, and she wants to tell you about her emotional eating. Can you tell me about a time that you emotionally ate, and what was your experience?
I emotionally ate after participating in a project and feeling stressed. I that's when I emotionally ate, just the stress of trying to complete the project in a timely manner.
And when because you'll have projects this year.
Mhm.
So in order to not emotionally eat? Do you have an idea about something that you can do to change that process?
For me, I think deciding not to have certain snack foods around, because I do a lot of my projects at home on Zoom and computer and things. So, for example, potato chips are my weakness, and I just decide, oh, can't have them here. Just can't have them in the house. And so instead of reaching for them, I choose to get up, walk around, and try to focus on something that helps, like my breathing, that helps to de-stress.
Absolutely. So have you ever noticed that you get stressed and you do something, and then can you stop that and choose something different? So both scenarios so far, they're trying to do something different from that behavior. And it might seem so simple, but these are pretty ingrained behaviors. So it can take a lot of time and sometimes frustrating, and sometimes you don't get it and you end up overeating and thinking, oh my gosh, I just did it again. And then you try again and you try again and keep looking at those emotions and seeing how you can reroute your thoughts. I have a couple more friends. So this is a friend of mine, and she, well, I'll just let you listen. Well,
Can you tell me about a time that you emotionally ate and what was your experience?
Recently, actually, I am in therapy for emotionally eating and various other things. But I was doing some homework, and before I realized what was happening, I was triggered because of the homework I was doing for my therapy, and I realized I was eating a bag of chips. And so I stopped eating the chips and journaled about it.
So is that your plan now? When you're working on that stuff, you're going to be journaling instead of...
Yes, and I don't have that many snacks in the house. Key is to not have it, so I can't just unconsciously start eating.
So the key is to not have them in the house. So they're consistently saying that to reroute, either not have them in the house, go do a different activity. And we have one more that I want to know if you can relate to. This is a little bit different scenario, my last one.
Can you tell me about times that you are stressed out and you emotionally eat?
Yes, all the time. When I'm driving, I stop at the store, I pick up chips and candy just for my ride home because I have like a 2 or 3 hour drive. And there's people that wait till the last minute and cut you off. And so you eat more because you're stressed out because people drive like jerks. And then you get to your destination and you have chips all over the ground and candy wrappers and all that stuff. And you realize that you've been eating the whole time that you're driving. You didn't even know it.
So what are you going to do to change?
So the only thing I could come up with really is just when I go to get gas or when I'm leaving the place that I'm driving from, that just don't go in the store and buy junk food for the road. Maybe do some trail mix or something that's a little healthier if I'm going to be driving long ways.
So I don't know if any of you have to drive for your job or to see relatives, and it's like this freedom to go get whatever you want. Well, if you drive for your job or you go see your relatives a lot, well, pretty soon you're adding all these extra calories because you're going for a long car ride. So what are you going to do different? And sometimes people will bring vegetables and nuts and stuff like that, but even not too many nuts because those are really high calorie. So, what is it that you're going to do a little bit differently? Because if you're doing that behavior over and over, now you're going to start to have a problem with too much food and recognizing when you're really hungry. So, want to see if you can relate to those people that shared a little bit about their emotional eating, and then look at these patterns of discovery to change behavior. So first and foremost, the first line of defense is to work with Are you physically hungry? How long has it been since you've eaten? Are you having like, gurgly stomach or a little lightheaded? Or have you waited long enough to actually have food? Or is it that you're not hungry and you're trying to eat because you're bored or these other things? So first of all, a lot of people will put these up on their door or in the car or wherever it is where they tend to overeat or emotionally eat. So there's 5 Ds, and they're delay for a few minutes, distract, which they talked about in the video, in the audio, take some deep breaths, which they talked about, drink water, or do something different. So all those were discussed in those audios from my friends. So just think about that, and you can write those down somewhere and put them up. And then determine what is driving your hunger. There's actually a book called What's Eating Me. And you want to look into that if that's really something that is like a deeper sense of this is really causing a problem, and look further into it. We use HALT in our program, which is if you're happy, angry, lonely, or tired, and we added a few more, bored, anxious, and depressed, or stressed. You want to check your emotions, because those are opportunities for you to go grab something to eat, and you didn't even look at that first line of defense to decide if you're actually hungry. So it's very common. Pretty much every friend I asked about this said that they did it, and I know I do. So it's very common. Sometimes it can become a problem if it's happening all the time. So 4 steps to utilize emotional hunger is to stop, take a deep breath, reflect or journal, and then re-choose. And I like to look at this for all behaviors. When an emotion hits, you get some bad news, stop for a second, take a deep breath, reflect about what it is and what your response is, and then choose that response. And my wise mother said, if it's a good idea today, it's going to be a good idea tomorrow. So sometimes waiting till the next day to make a decision is even better. And that calms down the emotions. So these are a couple of resources. There's that book, What's Eating You? There's also a behavior change book that I highly recommend. It's called Living Smart, the 5 Essential Skills to Change Your Habits. And then there is a seminar that I did a couple years ago about the path to well-being, and it talks about nutrition, so making some decisions about nutrition. And so that you can get from the company, from the Wellness Center. And that is it. I thank you so much. So I want you to just think through the video or the information we talked about here. See if you can relate to any of the people that you heard about, and try writing down, looking at your emotions over the next couple days and witness your response. And then there's a questionnaire that is sent to in your email, and you can go ahead and fill that out and go through the questions. And some of them are just about evaluating your thoughts on your emotional eating. So have a good rest of your day, and thank you so much for joining me.